You and I are constantly bombarded by misinformation from politicians, celebrities, and media personalities who demonize guns and gun owners. Their accounts are contrary to my experience as a responsible gun owner, a retired police officer, and a professional competitive shooter. I have listened to their lies and I've taken their punches, but I refuse to stay silent any longer because I know a lot of women who have something to say and they won in the game. They're ready to play offense with the truth.
The truth is, we all want the same thing: to protect ourselves, our families, and to be safe in our communities. The DC Project is a nationwide grassroots organization made up of women from every demographic. We come from all different walks of life, but we are united in preserving our Second Amendment rights. As we share our experiences, we push back against gun control lies and oppose those who demand our rights be restricted.
As an immigrant from Venezuela, I saw how easy it was for freedom to die. My family and I watched tyranny destroy our home. In Venezuela, the media, celebrities, and politicians repeated the same anti-gun messages until people found it normal and acceptable to give up their freedoms. The reality is, none of it is normal or acceptable. Hungry and helpless, Venezuelans are now unable to protect themselves. Now, as a proud American, I am determined to guard against the same things happening here.
We constantly hear about common sense gun control, like universal background checks, banning assault weapons, ghost guns, high-capacity magazines, and gun show loopholes. Every city that is facing massive crime waves have put these policies into place. Common sense tells me that they don't work. So why do people still believe the idea that those policies save lives? Actual common sense is holding criminals accountable, not letting them out of jail or encouraging them to be more confrontational. Common sense is not stealing the right of the American people to protect themselves. This is the message that America needs to hear.
The DC Project works to reduce firearm accidents by campaigning for education in schools. We counter the false gun control lies by testifying in hearings and meeting our legislators. We equip our friends, our families, and our communities to know the truth. Gun owners are good people.
America is a beacon of freedom. The Second Amendment is vital piece in ensuring that our kids can have a free country to grow up in. We stand with the lawmakers who support the Constitution, and we provide armor from the attacks by the gun control lobby.
Join the DC Project today. Become a member, donate, or subscribe to our newsletter for updates on how we educate, advocate, and preserve our Second Amendment rights for generations to come.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Shooter standby.
You hit the radio bullseye. And the home for everything Second Amendment, concealed carry, the latest gear, reciprocity, legislation, the right to self-protection, and it shall not be infringed. This is Eye on the Target Radio with your hosts, Rob and Amanda.
Hey there, everybody. I was just messaging my video editor because for some reason my name got really, really small and turned
micro printing.
It turned it, yeah. It was micro stamped. Who knows? It could be a whole secret. It was War and Peace typed in there. I don't know.
Top secret.
So for those of you who are listening on the radio, know that we're also on TV on OpsLens, and we do Facebook, YouTube, OpsLens, which is on-demand TV, Fire Stick, Apple TV, all of that kind of stuff. So there's a wide variety of ways to get a hold of us. I mean, I probably spend more time explaining to people that we're everywhere, but we really are. So not only do we do radio, but we podcast it so that if you miss us, you can catch us again later. And sometimes if you just want to watch us. So it's not like we're real exciting, though, because we're sitting in a room, in a studio, talking to you. So very Howard Sternish, if you will. So, and anyhow, I have to...
All I can think of is the McKinsey brothers. So
exactly. I have to tell you that a bunch of you guys have... Oh, wait, we've got a question. So Woods is asking a question for Rob. With tons of mag-fed shotguns available now, what do you think of them? I'm trying to decide if my aversion to mag-fed shotguns is just me, or if it's a thing.
no, I actually have an aversion to them also. I mean, I've shot a couple of different ones. I haven't given them a fair shake. All I can think of is the old days of the Mossberg bolt-action guns where the magazine didn't want to fit in the gun and it fell out as soon as you turned your back on it and stuff.
Yeah, don't trust it. Don't trust
the new
it.
ones are much better. They look much better anyhow. They're made out of 12 cents worth of plastic instead of a steel stamping that's sharp on the corners. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of different ones. I know that the guys with the AK shotguns, as much as that really doesn't sound like it should be a thing, they're actually a lot of fun.
They are. Okay, got it.
And they seem to run pretty good. I mean, I've seen a lot of them in competition with like 40-round magazines on the thing. Those magazine goes around like two turns on the thing like a ram's horn.
That's where I was going to go. And then there's some where they tape them together so you can flip it and then turn it and flip it. And
well, some of them are so long that it looks like they should have a wheel as they're running down to do the stuff. They're trying to get the maximum amount of shots they can out of. Not everybody can load like Lena Micklick, so.
Yes. Right. So the video producer has shot a mag-fed AK-12 gauge, and he likes it. He's more descriptive.
But I played around with a couple of different ones of those, and I like those. But the Mossberg and the Remingtons and that, I just try to stay away from them. I haven't given them a fair shake.
Given them a fair shake. You know, the thing I've been watching is, have you seen all the hubbub about the? I was going to change topics, but so again, more comments says I feel if mag-fed shotguns were a good idea, John Moses Browning would have done it. You can't expect, though he was brilliant, you can't expect him to think of everything. There's a spot where each person builds on the next. So I get it. And if you guys know Rob Morse, he's going to be our guest at the bottom of the hour. Look him up and then look at John Moses Browning. I believe that they are the same person. They look exactly like they're the same person. They're doppelgangers. So we're going to have Rob Morris as our guest today. So it was very fitting that we're talking about John Moses Browning, and it all kind of goes together. So I have to say that those of you who know me know that my husband is a car guy much more than he is a gun guy. Well, he took he took a range bag of guns and went shooting with all of his little friends this week. and I'm like, I'm dying laughing because he's like, I did this and I did that and they opened this and guess what? They had this and it's like, you are just absolutely too cute. And he was very proud of the fact that he was in the middle of the pack and he didn't come in last. So I'm like, I'm so proud of you, hon. I am absolutely proud of you. So
now, if you come in the middle, then you're solid. You don't have to worry about I didn't show up, nor did I make a fool of myself.
Right. So that there was that, and then he was like, and you didn't leave me enough bullets, so I had to go to the gun shop and I had to get bullets, and then I had to talk to them. So I was at the gun shop for several hours. I'm sure they
didn't buy another gun while he was there just because.
I'm sure they had a really good time with that. We'll just say. So I just thought, I don't mean to sound, I'm not condescending. I'm really not condescending. I just think it's adorable because he doesn't really want to be a gun guy until his friends become a gun guy, and then he's like, hey, I'm a gun guy too. But most of the time he's a car guy, and he's a super car guy. So the fact that when he steps into the gun guy thing,
yeah, he's got a pretty good gun collection too for a car guy.
Well, yeah, I think he married it. We'll just say, and that periodically he's like, I need it to look like this, or I need it to look like that, and so we make it look like that, whatever that is. So. Yeah, so for a car guy, he's got a pretty decent collection of guns, and so I was hesitant when he said he went to the gun shop to buy ammo. I was like, do you know what your gun takes?
The funny part is, I can remember, this had to be 25 years ago, he bought one of those fake Winchesters at the Wall Drug.
Right.
And he carried it around on his motorcycle, and him and his friends had a blast with this old die-cast pot metal Winchester copy.
And I was like, for what you paid for, you could have had a real one. Right? And so, exactly. But he put it crossways on his motorcycle on the passenger seat, so it was wideways, like it was going through the door. And he would ride around with it. It was like, dude, that's a recipe for disaster. But it's a fake gun, he says. Yeah, but it doesn't look fake until you... And it's like, oh my... Okay.
But yeah, he got his mileage out of that thing in more ways than one. But him and his friends had a blast. I remember they took it someplace. There was a community thing. They were going to clean guns.
Cleaning guns, yeah.
So he takes it to see it, and they couldn't figure out why it had a clog in the barrel. And
exactly. And then it was like, dude, what are you doing? Yeah, it was. Some of it, you're just like, okay. So, because the guy was like, it's got a clog in the barrel, and he was like, oh, it's a pretend gun. That guy was so angry. That guy was,
so it wasn't just don't get the joke.
It wasn't just slightly. That guy, it was like, do not take somebody in an audience and make him the butt of your jokes. Right?
Especially when he's supposed to know what he's doing.
Exactly. I'm just saying that he was supposed to be the gun.
That's like calling the TSA guy out on his boss because he didn't fill out the paperwork right, huh?
Right. All of that. Wait, I didn't do that. No. Wait, are you pointing at me? Is that what
I'm the one.
Yeah, no. I think that was
the guy hell because he didn't know.
I think that was you. You said that, and it was like, I'm like, don't. You're
gonna do it. You're gonna do a job. You should do it the right way, at least.
Right, and don't say that in front of the dude's boss, and it's a TSA, so just walk away. Just walk away. Let it go, and walk away. So there's just a spot where, no. So anyhow, did you go shooting or anything?
Oh, no, I didn't. I traded a reloader for a rifle, so I'm kind of happy because I would have taken half that much for the reloader.
Okay.
So he thought he was getting a deal, and I thought I was getting a deal.
So those are the best deals when everybody gets a deal. Yeah. Everybody gets a deal that is the best.
He had wanted one of these white-tailed deer things, or
Okay.
one of the hunting club
Yeah,
dinners.
Ducks Unlimited or one
Right,
of those. Yeah.
and it's not something that he would ever use, so he was glad to be able to pawn it off on me for something that he would use.
It was pretty funny. I was watching a friend who goes to those dinners all the time. I do not know how much money she spends, but I'm going to say that it's probably a car payment every time she goes.
Well,
Because
years ago, I had a lady come in, and her husband went to the Ducks Unlimited thing,
Yeah.
and he bought every year they have a different Ducks Unlimited gun. So he bought these guns, and I guess the idea is you go to the dinner and you get drunk, and then you spend a lot of money to try to beat your friends at it. And stuff.
right,
So he paid unconscious amounts of money.
premiums for these.
And then when he passed away, she was wanting to sell them, and when I told her what they were worth,
she was sad because it was not the premium money that he paid for them.
so they're still
We'll be right back.
bed.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit projectchildsafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
I'm Charlie Cook from Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the back seat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Riding Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a range master certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl / mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.eyeonthetargetradio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.eyeonthetargetradio.com for Rust is Bad.
Okay, so we are back in our history section, and what are we talking about?
Well, why don't we just talk about old guns? When you go to a gun show or a gun shop, how do you know an old gun from a new gun? Or
how do you know that an old gun has value versus an old gun that's just old?
a lot of it is the name that's on the gun. If you recognize the name as a Colt or a Smith & Wesson or something, then those usually have a value. Bigger guns usually have more value than little guns.
Okay.
Guns that were built for a purpose that the average person didn't have, like hunting a buffalo. They made them, but they didn't make a lot of them. So if you have one now, woohoo.
So those have more of a collector's value. Or
you got a gun for shooting a harpoon. If you lived in town and all you had was a squirrel, you really didn't need a harpoon gun. So harpoon guns are valuable and kind of rare, right?
Well, there is a little bit of that. I'm just saying.
And then if you look at the gun and look at the quality, some guns cannot have, they don't need any writing on them, but the quality of the workmanship is so
beautiful.
Good
yeah.
that the guy who did that, he gave 5 or 10 years of his life to make that piece look that nice.
Mm-hmm.
And so that gun has a value even if he didn't write his name on it anywhere. And but it's one of those things, how much is it worth to you versus how much is it worth to the next guy, unlike that.
Right.
Some of those also, if they didn't bother to write who made it, they don't write what caliber it was or any of that stuff. So if you know, you know, and if you don't, now you have to go on a search to figure it out.
And there's a lot of there's a lot to figuring it out. There's no doubt about it.
It's actually a pretty simple thing. If you do it, you could plug the bore and put some candle wax in there and knock the bullet out and do some measurements. They sell this stuff called Zero Safe. It melts at a pretty low temperature, and you can almost hold it in your hand and it'll melt. But you can pour it in there. It makes looks like an aluminum bullet.
Okay.
Then you can do some tests to see by measuring it what it might be or what size it is. Some of the European stuff, they were sly, and when you took the gun out of the wood, it would write on the bottom of the barrel.
So it was all marked inside when you undressed it.
And weird. Sometimes they wouldn't write it in normal letters that every person would understand, but they will tell you like what size the hole was drilled in the barrel and some of the length of the cartridge case or something like this. So you have to do some detective work to kind of figure out that it's one of these three, and then.
And when you're doing that, the thing to pay attention to is that you can't have a heavy hand with the tools to take it apart. You have to pay attention to the screw heads. You
like
have to
the old German rifles, stuff like this, and some of the shotguns, the English and the German shotguns. They have special sets of screwdrivers for those because everything was so super thin and done. If you just go trying to go to Walmart and buy a screwdriver, you're messing it up right away.
Right, and so you will actually knock hundreds, if not thousands, of dollars off.
Funny. If you look at the screws, some of them are actually engraved on both sides of the screw. So when you screw it through the hole, not only does it fit in this spot, but it also fits this tight so that all the
engraving and everything matches and looks like it's supposed to. Yeah.
So it ain't like there's 3 screws that are the same. This is the forward one, this is the after one, and this is the center one. And if they mix them up, all the lines don't line up again.
Right. And you can't tell when it's out which one is which one.
Right. And there's a lot of other things, like it may say 7x66 on it, but there may be 3 or 4 different 7x66s. And then, the guy that built it in 1929, he may have decided in 1950 that he didn't like that no more, so he did something else to it, And so it's no longer 7x66. It's something that new came out that was better, or so he had it modified at that point.
Okay.
So sometimes there'll be an Ackley improvement to it. Sometimes it's just a whole complete new cartridge.
So you have to pay attention. You have to know.
You can get blowed up easy if you just take. I know what I'm doing and do it, and not really know what you're doing.
Well, I remember we had a gal who came to one of our classes, and she brought guns that her father had bought when he was young, and she brought them to the class. And so the current ammunition was not, even though it said that it was a 22, it wasn't that 22.
Right. I mean, it was in 1931 they switched from regular ammo to high-speed ammo, and so on Colts you had to buy a high-speed kit to modify the Woodsmans and the sub-automatic stuff to fire it. The revolvers, it didn't matter, but the high standard guns were set up from the beginning to take the new high-speed ammo. So So you need to know what you got and pay attention, because you can do damage just by shooting ammo that says it fits, even though it doesn't.
It doesn't. And I mean, and she had absolutely gorgeous, beautiful guns that she came.
She had a first generation Colt Woodsman with the elephant ear grips. If you've ever seen one, or if not, Google it. You'll be amazed at the grips that are
right.
on
So
these.
the grips, the wood grips, came down past the bottom of the gun, and were tender and thin and
look like Dumbo's ears.
And they were potentially brittle, and so most of them never made it this long.
They broke off.
They broke off because it's a thin wood grain. And so it was pristine, absolutely pristine. And Rob's like, here, shoot one of our guns, because you don't want to shoot that. Not only does that ammunition, would that kill that gun, just handling that gun may kill that gun.
Right.
So don't.
There's a lot of stuff to it that it looks like the same bullets, but it's not. Plus P, you see plus P and plus P plus, stuff like this. The original Colt 38 automatic was built in 1902 as the sporting model, and in the 20s the FBI wanted a little more horsepower, so they souped it up and made it the 38 Super.
Okay.
The bullets are identical, except for it says Super on it, and it'll eat the 1902 gun up, but the 1929 style 1911s that are in 38 Super were built to handle that, because the FBI was looking for a pistol bullet that would poke a hole in a car body, and this was pre-357 Magnum time.
Well, and this is when car bodies were actually made out of metal, too.
Right.
So as opposed to right now, I could stick a pencil through it if I really wanted to.
Right, or your finger.
Well, there is that. I'm just saying that, so...
But yeah, old guns, they all have a little character to them. They when you look at them, you can almost see the quality in how they blued them and how they cut them and everything.
We'll be right back.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a range master certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Suffolk and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
Shotgun with Charlie.
I'm Charlie Cook from Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the back seat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Riding Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl/mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
Hi, this is Paul Lathrop from the Polite Society podcast. I wanted to let you know that the show you're listening to is a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. You can check out all the shows on the network by going to selfdefenseradio.net or tune in for more on Self-Defense Mondays on Karma Radio, KRMAradio.com.
Oh, okay. So we are back, and I'm not sure if I have a guest or not, but we'll run without it and go from there. Okay, so I've got him. So can we hear him? That's going to be the question. Oh, he's calling in right now. So we'll see. So I see him. So we're going to have Rob Morse. I'm trying to squeeze together. So we're supposed to have Rob Morse, and Rob Morse is the guy from Self-Defense Gun Stories, and among other things. Is it Rob Morse or is it John Moses Browning? So, hey, Rob, how are you?
I'm great, and I will never tell. John and I are keeping that secret.
I'm telling you, when there's times when I see the John Moses Browning picture and then I see the Rob Morse picture, I'm like, you just genetically... there's great grandpa or something in that family tree.
Who knows where we all started? So where do we want to start today?
Well, we want to talk a little bit about, I know that you and Rob, so Rob and Rob, are both news junkies. So let's talk about what's happening with the ATF. I am hearing politicians quoting the Second Amendment and talking about the ATF and talking about gun laws in a manner that I haven't heard in my lifetime.
You know what?
Boone opened this gate to all of us. There was an imaginary land we'd never thought we'd get to see, where actual people were allowed to have guns and do things. And it looks more realistic, like we may be able to have machine guns and all kinds of things in the long run.
Okay, Rob Morris?
Eventually, yes. Hopefully soon. What's really bothered me is the U.S. Supreme Court in the Bruin decision said, hey, remember that pesky right to bear arms, keep and bear, all that? Yeah, we meant it. What it says, it's not complicated. Go do it. Don't argue. And a bunch of Democrat-controlled states lost their minds.
They're like, argue? What argue? It reminds me of like two kids in the back of the car. Mom, he's touching my seat. Mom, he's getting closer to me. I mean, it's that kind of arguing.
Oh, Rob and Amanda, I think it was the middle finger salute through the back window of the station wagon. I mean, think of it. New York said, yeah, maybe you could have a gun. The police get your login information so that we can look at all your social media contacts. And that's everything from Tinder, Grindr, anything that can be called social media.
But you're seeing on state levels some of this stuff, but on other levels where the ATF and Texas are banging heads about if it's built in Texas, it stays in Texas. It doesn't meet their what do you want to call it, interstate commerce laws. So they have no ruling on what's going on.
You have no say over me. You're not the boss.
You're not the boss of me. So, but.
And it's not just the Fifth Circuit.
But the more they fight about this, it starts to expose the fact that the 1934 Gun Control Act did not have control of all guns, and so short-barreled rifles are much easier to see than handguns. So there's no reason why you should be allowed to have a handgun but not have a short-barreled rifle. So as things go along, it's looking more and more like they should have struck this down years ago instead of that they should do something about it.
Well, there is a deference toward the government. Now, to our discredit, we understand that many liberal judges go, the government said it, you want to restrict arms, that's fine. They're a bunch of so-called law and order conservative Republicans out of the Bush era. They'll go, oh, yeah, the government's just doing it for public safety. And the rest of us, modern conservatives, half libertarians, are going, stop right there. That's not what it says in the text. Back up, read it again. And it's not just the Fifth Circuit in Texas, it's the Eighth Circuit that's been telling the ATF to stop their nonsense. Bump stocks, pistol braces, magazine capacity. They're getting a lot of pushback, and I don't think they're used to it.
No, because they were sitting there saying, well, when the Second Amendment was written, they're talking about muskets, and that's not where that's not what they meant. And where does it say this or where does it say that? And somebody else, I'm loving the Twitter fights. They're like, it says it right there where it says musket, right? Because it doesn't.
Well, and now we've developed a scholarship. God bless people like Ashley Hiblinski. You know, you go, you want a 20-round magazine from the 1700s? Got one right here for you. Pre-Revolutionary War. You know, what do you want to talk about? And then what's so funny is if you actually read the ATF's arguments, they go, oh, yeah, this magazine, it's not a gun. And then you go, but here the U.S. Supreme Court said modern contemporary handguns are considered a firearm. They're fine. Oh, but it's dangerous. But it's not a firearm, so we can regulate it, but it is a firearm, so we have to they tie themselves up in such funny knots. It's a stitch.
Well,
that sounds like the same exact argument that I've seen in this ATF Diedelbach versus Texas thing on suppressors. That it's not a gun, so we can regulate it. Then it is a gun, and it's extra dangerous, so people will commit crimes with it. So it needs the extra protection of this law, and so one opinion steps on the other, and
then they're saying it is a gun, which means the ATF gets to regulate it. It's not a gun, so we can regulate it, right?
So it's not an infringement when we regulate it. Yeah, no. Right. I'm sorry. I was awake that day in class, and you guys didn't live up to the standard of making any sense.
There's a bunch of that. So there are like 5 court cases that are going to be heard in New York tomorrow. Starting. Yeah, so tomorrow is a if any of you guys are Twitter guys and gals, go find 4 Box Diner and
4 Boxes Diner.
And follow him. 4 Boxes Diner, and it's Mark Smith. And he is going to tweet. He's going to be there, and he's going to tweet what's happening in these court cases. because they're going to be really interesting. I mean, because it's First Amendment, Second Amendment, freedom of religion, restricting things in churches where they don't restrict it other places. It's really interesting how these judges have to, what they have to do, and the judges that have been picked for this, because it is New York, are not necessarily Second Amendment friendly, so it's not a wash.
No.
But because they've been given their instructions through the Bruen case, it should be a wash. So now you're going to find out, are they activist judges or are they judges? Right? That's really going to be part of what is answered tomorrow, is how do those judges fit into the world of judgment?
Well, you also see where they say, the left is saying, well, these the judges are stripping the people of safety and security. What was it the other day? One of the law classes wanted the Supreme Court to.
Oh yeah, and they were like, they want them to. They wanted to go completely against Bruen. What was it? It was one of the law schools, wasn't it?
There was a law school that said that things would go better for. It was like Johnstown.
John Hopkins.
John Hopkins.
That's what it was. It's John Hopkins. Yeah.
Things would go better for everybody if they let the people retain their safety and went away from Bruen decision.
Right, and just walked away from the Bruen decision and not activated the Supreme Court decision. And it's like...
You know what's so fascinating? We're listening to a bunch of law students compare the narrowness of their experience. Mm-hmm. You know people who've faced life-threatening situations and used a firearm to protect themselves. They don't. They know to them, what they see in the news is real. You and I know people who've been victims of crime, some of whom were able to protect themselves. Unfortunately, we know people who were not because the state disarmed them. We know both sides of the story, and they're telling us how bigoted they are that they only know one side.
Right.
When you look at people like Justice Scalia and how far-reaching he could envision something going, versus these close-mindedness of these people who only see this one little spot of, so they don't see the other people that are interacting with that law one way or the other.
Right.
I mean, Scalia could see how changing a law on oil production could cause feather pillows to go up in value or something. And
he could connect dots, but some of it is, I cannot, it would make my head hurt to think as long and hard as the Supreme Court justices have to think on these cases. Because it's not just, here's this knee-jerk, grab this and run with it. Their opinions and their dissenting opinions kind of do a lot of research.
They have to look at how over the next 75 years this stuff is going to affect the long term.
And the long-reaching portion of it. So it's really kind of interesting. But why do you think, I mean, is it all attributed to Bruen, or why do you think that there's so much Second Amendment in the news right now?
Well, I think some of it is because they've ignored it for the last 224 years.
Well, there is that.
And then all of a sudden they have an open gate to it. So now there's so much coming through. It's like
we've just reached critical mass.
Examining the water coming out of the dams down there in Las Vegas. It's there's a lot of it in a little while, and you got to try to make heads or tails of what's happening.
So I don't know. So Rob, I need you to stay on for the next segment because we want to talk more about this. But I want to get an idea of kind of why you think it's so far-reaching, why you think it's reaching critical mass right now. I mean, the president has decided that he is just going to do executive orders because he can't use the courts. We'll be back right after this.
Honest citizens like you protect themselves every day. We talk about it every week on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Were these gun owners lucky, or did they have a plan? How should we defend the people we love? We discuss recent examples on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Put us in your pocket.
Hi, I'm Janelle Westrom, owner of Davenport Guns and Davenport Shooting Club. At Davenport Guns, we do so much more than sell firearms. We advocate for increased personal safety and security, not just for you, but your whole family and community. Go to davenportguns.com to see our online inventory and browse videos, articles, and things we just find entertaining. Sign up for our newsletter to learn more.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Sefcool and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl/mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3 and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Shotgun with Charlie.
I'm Charlie Cook from Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the back seat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Riding Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Okay, so we are back, and with us we have our guest, Rob Morse. And Rob is the author of Self-Defense Gun Stories, the podcast that is extremely popular. But we have him on here because he's also a deep thinker on guns and gun stories and gun news and all of that kind of stuff. So Rob, you also write for a variety of publications. So why don't you tell folks where they can get a hold of some of your writings?
My writing's often picked up at AmmoLand Shooting Sports News. It's picked up at Clash Daily and the Daily Surge.
Okay.
But you asked something really interesting. Why now?
Yeah.
Why the surge of craziness? And I think it's two reasons, really. We've seen more and more money talk in politics because we saw people who were nobody buy the field and get elected. And we've seen a lot of corruptions in elections. Georgia and Arizona come to mind. Pennsylvania comes to mind. If you can control what's recorded in a few big cities, you might be able to control the entire state. Harder to do for the local House races, easier to do for the Senate and for the federal Senate, and for maybe the governor and attorney general races. So a lot of people are going, and then we watched just what, in hindsight, we would say, this is insane politics. You know, hi, the flu's come, let's turn all the criminals loose. And you go, I'm sorry. Would you say that as slowly so I'm sure we're both listening?
Right.
And, okay, I think this is sort of a flood the zone. The politics in our time is so crazy. I mean, I've got to bring this up. You may not, as a gun owner, you may not be interested in politics. It is interested in you.
There is that, yeah.
We've had politicians shut off on energy supplies. I mentioned refusing to prosecute violent criminals. We've got a near world war brewing in Eastern Europe. Our southern border is wide open, and we've got a record number of deaths from drugs. Inflation.
Oh, and our banks collapsing.
Our banks are collapsing, and in President Biden's state,
question.
Yeah, the power grid. There you go.
Right.
And President Biden, in his State of the Union speech, said things have never been better.
Right.
I can't make that up.
So there is that, and then they say, and we want to disarm you because everything is fine.
It's going so well, and I think it's ignorance on our part. Meaning, millions of people don't listen to Eye on the Target radio. This may come as a shock to you two guys, but I met some of them. It's really sad. I try and fix it when I find it. They literally don't know that guns save lives. So when some MSNBC, CNN commentator says, everybody'd be safer if you guys were disarmed, of course not my security guards, a lot of people are staring at the tube and their head moves up and down. It's scary out there.
It is, and so it's really interesting just to kind of watch all this happening. But I
seen a poll recently though where they were saying about they asked the general public about the gun control. If you if you thought we needed gun control, and they said the majority said yes, they did, and then they said they gave them a specific pointed scenario that somebody they worked with was being stalked or something. You had a gun you would loan them, and that turned you into a felon. They immediately changed their mind and decided that they were no longer for gun control.
They're not, right?
Yeah. So the other was a similar poll. Do you think we should get new firearms control laws or enforce the ones we have? Hand over fist, we say, well, why don't we try enforcing the ones we've got already?
Right, and then there's criminal reform. If you start to look at some of the big cities, they're actually going, we've got to do something with criminal reform because, guess what? There's that.
Well, you're seeing that in Chicago right away where they got rid of the old mayor just because she wasn't doing anything about it.
Well, she ran on a crime ticket to begin with, and then she said, oh, you didn't reelect me because you're racist. But the crime has just gotten worse. But when she ran, she said, it's bad crime and I'm going to fix it. And then later she was like, yeah, no, you're just racist. So, Rob, one of the questions I've got is defensive gun uses versus guns used by criminals. What's that ratio? What's that number? And because I think that they're talking about my gun when they say they're taking away a gun, not the criminal's gun.
Well, okay, watch this. We want to control what violent people do, so we're going to pass laws on people who aren't violent and obey the law. So immediately we have a disconnect that this is not the appropriate solution. But when we look at the number of violent criminals who used a gun and the number of citizens that used a gun in self-defense, they didn't shoot in every one of those instances, by the way, nor did the criminals. That's between 10 to 1 in favor. We're more likely to use a gun in armed defense than the criminal is to. Now, here's what's interesting. The criminal, maybe he holds up one person, maybe he holds up 3 or 4. So maybe 4 people said, I was held at gunpoint. I've been a victim of the criminal use of a gun. when we turn that around, we don't know the number, how many people were saved by a gun. We say, did you have the gun and you used it? That number we know, 1.6 to 2.5 million. But how many people did I save when I did it? Was it me alone? Me and my date? Me and my family? Me and my church? We have no idea.
Right. No, and it's an interesting, bigger number. And then there's so many people that are actually saved because they've got a gun on their person, but their gun makes them more polite instead of less polite, and so they just turn and go home, as opposed to stay in. This is something's going on here, and I have a gun, and I don't think I want to stay because I've got enough smarts to realize that it's going to go south here.
The prudent person realizes that today may be the day when your marksmanship sucks and his doesn't. So
Right.
The last thing you want to do is find out that today's his lucky day and lucky shot is going to drill you through the head.
Well, there's that, and the other part is once you take a concealed carry class, it makes you stop and think. It makes you stop and think about where you go, what you do, and raises your level of awareness so that when you're in a sketchy situation, you identify it immediately, going, wait, this is the stuff they told me about.
Right. I'm going home.
Maybe I need to go home. Right, exactly.
My wife saw a crazy man in the parking lot, and this crazy guy is yelling at this old man, and my wife's going, I just want to get the old man out of here. Who cares where the crazy guy throws the groceries? We really don't care, because I've got a gun, and if this turns violent, it could turn lethal.
Right,
What I really
and I don't
want
want
is
to
a
have
rugby
to.
team to tackle the nut, but I don't have that in my pocket.
I don't have that, so I'm just going to grab the old man and I'm going to get out of Dodge, because there's that. We can buy him new groceries later.
If I had a rugby team.
Exactly. It's really interesting. There is so much stuff going on. Rob, I'm going to ask you to come back on our show in a couple weeks when you're done traveling again, because I know you're retired and so the ocean is calling you. But I want you to come back because I want to talk about domestic violence and using it to weaponize. And so people in divorces are using lawyers to issue protection orders and disarming people. And then now the anti-gunners are losing their minds about this because maybe there are some people who are bad people, but they probably should be locked up and not just a singular, oh, well, we'll just take their gun away. Because we didn't take their knife, we didn't take their umbrella, we didn't take their car, we didn't take any of the other things that they could use to hurt someone if they were inclined or prone to hurt. So, folks, I'm going to wrap this right here by saying check out Rob Morse, Self-Defense Gun Stories. You're going to find it as a podcast everywhere the podcasts are. And then go look for his Slow Facts blog. And you can find him on AmmoLand and trace it from there. That's probably the easiest way, because otherwise that name is, I can never remember the
Too hard
whole...
to say. Yeah, it was a bad choice.
I'm not questioning you. I'm just saying, yes, it is. We'll be back right after this, folks. Thanks, Rob.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3 and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself we'll protect you.
Operator standby.
You hit the radio bullseye. And the home for everything Second Amendment, concealed carry, the latest gear, reciprocity, legislation, the right to self-protection, and it shall not be infringed. This is Eye on the Target Radio with your hosts, Rob and Amanda.
Okay, so welcome to hour 2 of Eye on the Target Radio. I love feedback from our listeners, and so if you are on YouTube, if you are on Lapslands, if you're on Facebook, any of those, you can get to Eye on the Target Radio. And so one of our listeners just said that Governor Newsom made a press release that said that he was going to make San Quentin Prison into a Swedish-style prison with no bars or no doors. That's prison reform, and so we'll see. That's different than criminal reform. It's prison reform. So is that like a on your honor prison?
Maybe they're gonna put force fields up.
I can't even. There's times when you look at something and you're like, I just can't even get my head wrapped around that thought process to that extreme. That if you take someone and they're bad enough that they need to be locked away from society, they need to be locked away.
Maybe they're putting the FedEx cannon up and it does the work of the bars.
I don't know. It's just on your honor. You just come in at night, lock yourself in, or just close the door. You'll be fine.
Like the guy on the Andy Griffith show, huh?
Well, yeah. What was it, Otis? I think that was Otis. But I cannot even. I think that there's a spot where sometimes those bars are for their protection, as much as protecting society from them. It's from each other. But that's just me, and maybe I've watched too many prison movies. I don't. I don't know. So the interesting thing is that our president, Joe Biden, he's done another press release where he's going after guns.
You know, before we get to this,
okay,
we're seeing current events. Ex-President Trump, who's, I guess he's not really ex-president because
they're just off deployment, right?
Right. So he's president off deployment, but he's supposed to be arrested on Tuesday, and they're saying that they can't arrest a president because that would set a precedent, I guess.
Precedent for the president. Got it. Okay.
So, but we've all been sitting around watching Joe Biden do all of his stuff, and we've been with our fingers crossed, hoping that something would go on, that they would arrest him just to try to save our 401ks and our gas money.
But if they can't arrest one, they can't arrest the other. There is all of that.
So what can they do, if anything? And we just stuck riding this train to the end of the track.
I think we're back to bad country western movies, and they blew up the tracks, and there's a cliff, and our train is chugging along.
From the train. Huh? Throw Mama from the train.
Well, if you throw Mama from the train, at least she may make it, as opposed to us with the train that goes off the chugga chugga chugga. Ooh. Something.
He's got so much stuff. He keeps doing this. There's gaffes that he and things that he says to the rest of the world that even the comedians can't come up with stuff that's as funny as some of the things he has going on.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, so there's reality, then there's politics, and then there's whatever this is. It's a mess. But right now, the executive order that Mr. President Joe Biden said will advance congressional efforts to prevent the proliferation of firearms undetectable by metal detectors. So the interesting part is that someone told him that if they 3D print a gun, that there's nothing metal in it.
Well, in Die Hard 2, they told you all about how that happens.
Okay.
So if he watched his TV, maybe that's what spurred this on. The other thing that is where he goes in and writes all this out, but nowhere in that executive order does it tell you how he's going to do it. He's kind of leaving it up to someone else to come up with the.
It's I got this brilliant idea, woohoo, and then he rolls it out. So I don't know. I mean, here's the interesting part: is that the Bruin decision is saying the courts are backing off on so many of the Second Amendment laws that they've put in place, and they're just backtracking on all of them. I mean, we just invited Rob Morse to come back to talk about domestic violence and the accusations that were enough to disarm people for the rest of their life. And so that's backing up. And so the president's going, yeah, we're just going to get rid of all of these. We're going to get rid of all of these. And I'm just going to, with a flick of a pen, I'm just going to do that. And it doesn't do anything about criminal reform. It only does something about firearms and taking the guns from the law-abiding.
Well, and if you watch these gun buyback programs, you'll see somebody took a couple pieces of pipe and a couple of rubber bands and made himself a single-shot gun that worked in the...
Well, and it has to work, so they test it to make sure that it works.
So it takes the guy 15, 20 minutes by the time he's done polishing this and
making it work.
But it does work, and so how are they stopping these if a guy can just go to the hardware store and whip one of them up in a couple minutes and then go triple his money at the gun buyback program?
I don't know, because they're gonna take away all the manufactured
Hand in your Dremel
guns.
tool.
That's it, and your blocks of steel, and your pipe, and your So they're going to have to go after ammunition if they really want to disarm America. And they think that there's a lot of guns in America. Wait till they start to try to gather bullets.
Right. Well, then they still got the guys back before bullets that aren't really too affected by it.
Right. So I've got some lead weights and a mold.
My flintlock still works just fine without bullets or any of that store-bought stuff.
Right.
And you can ask the Russians. The Afghans would go and steal a couple miles of train track at night. They'd build themselves a flintlock, and after a morning's successful hunt, they had a couple of AK-47s to show for it. And so they handed the flintlocks down to the next guy down the hill, and they took their new AK-47 and went out
hunting for an AK-47. So I'm going hunting. I'm just hunting for something different than. I mean, that's right up there with, anything that fires once, you can then get something else for it. That's where those Liberator pistols were from. I mean, frankly, just a knife will allow you to upgrade your gear. If you've got a knife and some bravery, right?
Yep. A little bit of skills.
Exactly. And so there's just so much stuff, but I don't know where you see. I mean, it's like this pendulum is swinging, and it is swinging so violently that we're seeing all ends of it right now. It's not like it's over here or it's over there. It is just you're seeing the whole spectrum.
Earlier about every different attack on gun laws, from local city laws to state laws to federal laws. Bruin's slapping them down, and they're still writing more, trying to find the nook or cranny that it's safe in.
Right, or that nobody's going to fight back right now because they're busy fighting someplace else.
Right, we're seeing a lot of other things where the some of it by just fiat, the government entity just changes the way they see things, and now all of a sudden what was legal is no longer illegal. We were talking the other day about congressmen and senators. When you go and talk to them about something, you realize how little they know about a certain topic.
Right.
And
well, it's
so
because
these guys,
they're experts. They're generalists on everything.
Well, if they're smart when they go to town, they keep their mouth shut. They listen to what's going on, and if there's something in their neighborhood that is a problem, they educate themselves and deal with it. If they're not smart, they go to town expecting to make a name for themselves, so they try to pass laws that we don't really need. So you get extra speeding laws, or you eat a baked potato while you're driving, or you can't talk on your phone.
Because
or
somebody
you can't...
said we ought to do something about that, and so they're doing it, right? Because they're looking for, how am I going to make an impact? How am I going to make a difference? And I don't have any ideas. So, you came up and said, yeah, so somebody ran me off the road while they were eating a baked potato while they were driving. So we need a law against that.
Right. So that's the thing, is that everything, anytime somebody says there ought to be a law, no, there shouldn't be. That guy should have a sit-down talk with what his real job is and what should be going on.
They should spend more time writing laws that repeal other laws. As crazy as it is, California has for every gun they put on the list, they have to take 2 off. If we did that with laws, it would be great. If we do it with guns, it's not so great. It really isn't, because they're limiting and restricting the California citizens. So we'll be back right after this.
Honest citizens like you protect themselves every day. We talk about it every week on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Were these gun owners lucky, or did they have a plan? How should we defend the people we love? We discuss recent examples on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Put us in your pocket.
Hi, I'm Janelle Westrom, owner of Davenport Guns and Davenport Shooting Club. At Davenport Guns, we do so much more than sell firearms. We advocate for increased personal safety and security, not just for you, but your whole family and community. Go to davenportguns.com to see our online inventory and browse videos, articles, and things we just find entertaining. Sign up for our newsletter to learn more.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit projectchildsafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Hi, this is Paul Lathrop from the Polite Society podcast. I wanted to let you know that the show you're listening to is a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. You can check out all the shows on the network by going to selfdefenseradio.net or tune in for more on Self-Defense Mondays on Karma Radio, krmaradio.com.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Sefcool and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl/mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.IamTheTargetRadio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.IamTheTargetRadio.com for Rust is Bad.
So what you got? So we are back, and you've got a story. So what are we talking about?
Well, I got stories, but none of them are exciting. It's all about New Hampshire's got anti-gun laws. Delaware is wanting to push anti-gun laws. The ATF is writing their own stuff.
It's blowing up everywhere.
Well, I think we're at the spot. You watched them where they go to catch the alligator, and they're right at the end of the line, and so the alligator starts into this roll that tries to pull them in the water.
And it's thrashing, and it's
I think that's where we're at.
You are
here.
We're at the splashing and thrashing, and they're going down.
Right. They don't really have any argument. They have. Even their facts are flawed, and so they just keep on throwing more things out, hoping that they'll just can't just leave us alone. And it's not going to happen that way.
It is. It isn't. It really isn't. So it really is this thing where it's like, you could just keep. So do you just keep watching it going, and then, or do you just stand back, or do you go off and have some coffee on the porch and ignore it all for a little while? Or?
If you ignore it, then it gives them power to think that they have you. So you have to keep fighting, and every time they bring up something, no matter how stupid it is, you have to challenge it in court. You have to challenge it at the ballot box. You have to fight this stuff. But it's just so tiring because even though they lost last week, they got 3 more people writing new things this week to try to come up with something that doesn't sound too stupid and that they might be able to defend when they're talking on television.
Right. Well, New Hampshire's trying to delay by impose a 3-day waiting period. They're trying to ban firearms at all polling places. They are trying to repeal the PLCAA, the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act. Yeah, PLCAA, Lawful Commerce in Arms Act.
I was reading a thing the other day, and they were talking about the 1934 Gun Control Act, and the part of the Gun Control Act was they were supposed to go after everything totally. So machine guns, shotguns, rifles, pistols.
So let's go back into the history of the 1934. So in 1934, this was a gang war. Not gang, but mob gang war.
Say through the 20s and 30s, you've all heard the
Pretty
Mob
Boy
Barker,
Floyd,
Pretty Boy Floyd, all these, Al Capone.
Bugsy Malone, all
so
those.
Then this 18th Amendment was passed where you couldn't have alcohol or something.
Yeah, so the 18th was prohibition.
Right, and so that just gave the mobs more power. And so then they started to fight over territory. They were using stolen guns to do that.
So the St. Valentine's Day Massacre was actually guns were stolen out of the U.S. mail that were headed for a legal buyer outside the country. And
the FBI, they didn't really have the manpower or the arms or any of this stuff. They were not. There was a fledgling police department that was
dealing with the interstate commerce portion. But in addition, they dressed as police officers with a stolen police car, came from one warring faction of the mobsters group to another warring faction of the mobsters group, and they murdered the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. So they murdered one whole group of the Moran gang, and
Right. Even when they one of them was alive at the end, they asked him about it. And he wasn't no stool pigeon. He wasn't telling.
Right. He said nobody killed us all, and then he died. Okay, so somebody did, but he said nobody did.
So anyhow, this was like other bills that they had done. They had already had stuff written up in the
It was
advance of
a
this.
bill that was written waiting for an emergency to happen to invoke it.
Right, so the St. Valentine's Day Massacre was enough to draw public sentiment that caused them to do that. So in this there was the machine gun they hated, the sawed-off shotgun they hated, the short-barreled rifle, suppressors, handguns. They were going after everything. Originally, the suppressors and the short-barreled rifles and shotguns weren't really in the thing. They just wanted rifles, shotguns, and
But they wanted to take handguns away
right.
too.
They just wanted the normal stuff everybody used: handguns, rifles, and shotguns. And then they decided to add the short-barreled rifle, the suppressors, and the short-barreled sawed-off shotguns.
But people pushed back about the handguns, so the handguns came out,
right?
And the other went in.
The fee at the time was $200. It was about half or a little more than half of what a new Ford cost at the time. So the average person could not afford to pay $200 tax to have a handgun, and there was still quite a few people that were carrying one every day. So they scrubbed this out of the bill, and leaving the sawed-off shotguns, the short-barreled rifles, and the machine guns and stuff in there. They're saying today, and as they get into court, it's looking like because they pulled the handgun bill out at that time, they should have actually just killed the whole bill then. So now when they're shining the light of law onto this, it doesn't really stand up too well. Their only thing that they're saying is they have 100 years of advance
of tradition now.
Right, 100 years of tradition, but they really don't have anything else that they can say is the reason why.
But they don't have since 1791, so they don't have the tradition, the history, text, and tradition that Bruin says. But they grabbed onto the tradition word and said, "Well, we've got."
Some of the other places are starting
years.
to use I think it was the 14th Amendment with the 1868. They're saying that's where the line actually should have been drawn instead of 1791. So even those people are willing to give up to the Civil War, where they were starting to try to keep the blacks from arming themselves after the war.
So so there's a spot where so they can't defend the NFA, they can't defend the 1968 Gun Control Act, they can't defend 1986. So suppressors are going to end up coming back, short-barreled rifles, machine guns.
It's going to take a while.
Mail order of a firearm. But right now they're losing their minds because they're starting to back off the 18-year-olds and a few of those others. We'll watch and we'll see. We'll be right back.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a range master certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3 and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America. to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl / mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.eyeonthetargetradio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.eyeonthetargetradio.com for Rust is Bad.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit projectchildsafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Shotgun with Charlie.
I'm Charlie Cook from Writing Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the back seat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Writing Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
One of the things that is the most interesting to me is how politicians truly fail to think things through. So in the state of Washington, in the city of Seattle, the Washington City Council, so in Seattle, so the city council there, they passed some law that said that they were going to add taxes. They were trying to get rid of gun crime. And so they wanted to use money brought in by gun sales and ammunition sales to do crime prevention work. So they looked at the numbers and they said, well, based on this amount of guns that were sold in the city, this amount of ammo that was sold in the city, this is how much money we should be able to bring in, and we should be able to bring in between $300,000 and $500,000.
And they're doing like a nickel for each bullet, 2 cents for rimfire
and $25 for a gun. But it was only in Seattle, Washington proper. So the Seattle, Washington City Council. But it's only, so it was that. And so the first thing that they failed to think about was the fact that the buyers they had cars, and they could drive to the next city over. And so instead of paying $25 more for a gun in the city proper, they could go outside of the city.
You see this when they give like a tax holiday for in a state for the school or something like this. The people in the next state over will drive over to take advantage of this on that particular day.
And they're like, how dare they?
They wouldn't normally come that far, but because they're getting taxes,
or if they're overtaxing, I'm going to drive away from it. If they're undertaxing, I'm going to drive to it.
So if you got to get gas, just drive over to that side of the county to buy gas in the next state over, because it's always 2 cents cheaper, 5 cents cheaper.
And if they're going to do a tax moratorium, people are going to wait 2 weeks and say, I don't need it yet. I'll wait 2 weeks and then buy it. So all of a sudden there's this lull, and then there's a spike, and then there's a lull again, right? Imagine that. So in this case...
Payday lines up with that spike, doesn't it?
Hey, well, that or the deal, and you save your money in the deal. So instead of between $300,000 and $500,000, they're at $134,000. So it's less than half of the lowest number estimated is what they're bringing in. So that's the first thing.
Well, then they can't go out and say shoot more people or do anything to try to boost their numbers, because that looks un-American.
Well, shoot more people is happening. That's the other part of this. This is. So they were taxing you to be able to save, to have this money so that they could use crime prevention bills. So in the year that the tax passed, they had 19 homicides in Seattle. In 2020, so that was 2016, 2016, and 19 homicides. Then in 2022, they had 52 homicides. In the spike, when they had the whole fighting and the whatever that was in Seattle, where they had the whole zone of crime,
they were setting things on fire, and
that it was, homicides were up to 53 in 2020. So the homicides are up. So
those numbers don't seem too out of hand unless you're one of those 53.
Well, it does seem out of hand that in less than 10 years it has almost tripled.
From 20 to 53, then.
Right. Yeah, so there's that. The other part that they didn't anticipate is the jobs left town. 2 businesses picked up and moved outside of the city limits. I mean, I don't know. Have you ever seen one of those where there's a dry county, and that on every exit road to the dry county, as soon as you got over the county line, there was a bar?
Only when I'm traveling.
Well, that would be that. But I mean, that's the aspect of what you can see or expect to see. They didn't think this through at all.
And usually it says right on a county line bar or something like that.
Right. It's giving you a warning.
They're kind of flicking the booger at the
right
at the law in the first place.
Exactly. So because I'm right outside the limit, because they didn't want to name it the Nanner Bar, but that should be exactly what it is. But I'm just saying. So when you start to look at this kind of stuff, it's like, think things through, folks. People have free will, and so when you think that you're going to tax them, fine them, punish them, and you don't have them contained. So if Washington State did that in its entire state, they would have more luck, because for pistol purchases you can't go outside the state. But if you can drive from one city to the next, guess what? You have free will and gasoline.
It's kind of funny. We're on here, we talk about laws and stuff, and every week they're out to get you. Face the facts, folks. There's a ton of things that they want to do. They would like to add some lanes on the freeway so you can drive 100 miles an hour if you're not getting off on or off or something. They want to put a high-speed rail in most parts of the country. They know it's feasible. They just don't bother to spend the money on it because they're too busy wasting your money on other things, either on studies to see if it's worth doing a study, or on
I got to study for the study? Is that what you're saying?
But they're sending your money overseas, or they want to see how fast the shrimp can run, or they need to know how many hot dogs a college student can eat in a half hour.
I don't know that shrimp can run, because I don't think they can they don't have hands to tie their little tennis shoes.
I don't know. I seen one on a treadmill one day in one of the test things they were doing. So there's
okay. Got it.
If you got the government's money, you can make a lot of things happen that not naturally occurring, I believe is how they...
It's not naturally occurring. Okay, got it. I don't know. I mean, I hate to seem... It seems as if our show has... I don't want it to go to conspiracy theory, but
everything is a conspiracy theory until you get to see the real story, and then it's just conspiracy fact, and
it's the theory to the fact. I don't know.
But I
it's
mean,
crazy.
they've done this to us forever. The schools are making us stupider. The politicians, it's all about how much money are you worth. As soon as you walk out your front door, we're going to get you for not wearing your seatbelt, for driving 5 miles an hour the speed limit. You got those stupid blue headlights in your car. You don't dim the headlight. Everything dollar. How much does it cost you at the end of the month?
And it's for public safety.
Right, and then some policeman on a motorcycle without a seatbelt gives you a seatbelt ticket, and for public safety, it's a big giant game to get your money, and you're just a milk cow that they allow to roam free.
Roam free, well, sort of free.
Right, and then they can track you down between your house and Walmart to get whatever they got to do.
So whatever's in your pocket. How much money you got? I want it.
It's
right?
a shakedown. That's what they go. It's a shakedown.
Folks, let me tell you, I'm in the car with Rob sometimes, and when I hear this stuff, I am like, you're killing me, dude. You are killing me. So,
truth is stranger than fiction.
I am the optimist. There's a spot where I am not Pollyanna, but I am the optimist, and you, on the other hand, are not so.
You have your head buried in the sand like a ostrich, and you should be paying more attention to what's happening to you.
You are the only person in the world that's going to tell me
when you go to get a license plate, do they ask you what color your car is? What difference does it make what color my car is?
Did I tell you? Did I tell you about that? Because you got me so freaked out about that when they asked me the color, I just randomly picked one, right? So I was like, Rob said I shouldn't tell him what color it is, so I didn't. Then I was doing something, and the government I had to prove that I was me, and then they're like, okay, so what color is your car? I know what color my car is. I don't know that you know what color my car is, and I don't remember what color I told you what my car was. So I'm pretty sure I missed that question.
It's teal for 2A.
Well, now it would be, but then I have no idea what color I picked. I think I picked multicolored. I think I picked that it was...
Right, it's a camouflage car. Everybody's got one.
I don't know, but I was like, uh-oh, I'm going to flunk this one. And I immediately thought of you.
There's so much paperwork that you fill out every day that should be none your business.
None your
business. I mean, they want to know you're going to get your uniforms at work. There's 10 questions on there that have nothing to do with your uniforms for work or what size can you're putting in those uniforms.
They asked you what size your can was.
They have to do part of that, but the rest of it is like, well, they don't need to know where I live at. They're
doing it for work.
work.
They may have to come to your house to get their pants back.
They wouldn't want to even think about it.
When you said that you were getting uniforms for work, that is like too much uniformity.
I'm getting short sleeve pants and short sleeve shirts, just like the Chippendales do. You ever see the one with the Tommy Boy where he's dressed up like a Chippendale and he's got his undersized uniform on?
I
should look it up because it's comical.
I cannot even imagine you wearing
Chris Farley in a 2 sizes too small uniform.
Is that the one where he's dancing with Patrick Swayze?
I believe so.
Okay, I might have seen that because Patrick Swayze. Hello, you know there are some things that I will flex and listen or watch in a different. But I cannot imagine that you would even think about shorts. And so I don't believe that that's...
I'm not going to wear short sleeve pants, but I'm just making a statement is all. And so.
Okay, we'll be back right after this, folks. Can you visualize it?
Hi, I'm Janelle Westrom, owner of Davenport Guns and Davenport Shooting Club. At Davenport Guns, we do so much more than sell firearms. We advocate for increased personal safety and security, not just for you, but your whole family and community. Go to DavenportGuns.com to see our online inventory and browse videos, articles, and things we just find entertaining. Sign up for our newsletter to learn more.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Suffolk and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl/mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.eyeonthetargetradio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.eyeonthetargetradio.com for Rust is Bad.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3 and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit projectchildsafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a range master certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
Well, to continue our trend and our theme of government overreach.
We had a theme.
We had a theme. We did.
Well, did you see the other day it was on one of the like C-SPAN, they were talking to one of the snipers that were in Afghanistan when they were getting out of the country.
Nope.
And left all of the equipment there. He was going on about how he had the actual shot to get rid of the bomb belt guy that blew up the 13 Marines, but they wouldn't allow him to take that shot and stuff. And so there's a lot of different things. These guys are coming to Congress and talking now instead of when the Democrats were running it, no one was allowed to speak because they might say something they didn't want to hear. Here's a guy that comes in and tells them how government's supposed to run, and that
Well, this is a really interesting thing, and it's a couple different things. So this is an AmmoLand article written by Jim Grant and Larry Keene. So Ray Kleckner is a former special operations sniper. He's a lawyer. He's an author. He worked for the National Shooting Sports Foundation. He is a firearm safety advocate, and he co-owns an organization called the Gun University, a site dedicated to firearms education and regulation compliance. So Thomas Massey, who heads up the Second Amendment Caucus, is here chairing a hearing, and the topic was reigning in the administrative state, reclaiming Congress's legislative power. So think about this. The fact is that they had to have a subcommittee, a U.S. House of Representatives subcommittee, with the topic of reigning in the administrative state, reclaiming Congress's legislative powers. Now, the interesting part is that Thomas Massey is a pro-Second Amendment guy. He runs the Second Amendment Caucus. The fact that he's chairing this hearing was pretty interesting. And one of the reasons why he did it was he said, today Americans must routinely follow rules that come from a source other than Congress. Well, we saw that, and we've been telling our listeners, we've been talking about that ever since the Supreme Court hearing, the Supreme Court ruling, the EPA versus West Virginia came out, where they were talking about overreach. And this guy, this Kleckner, says...
you don't have to tell him what color your car is.
Right. Well, that's sort of... We'll just say, nanner bar. So Kleckner says, when you consider legislation or holding hearings on matters, it's open to the public. This transparency is fundamental to our government. Debates on legislation and hearing, such as this one, allowing for differing opinions to be heard and considered before legislation is passed. Allowing, and then on the other hand, allowing non-elected and non-representative government bureaucracies in federal agencies to exercise power that should be limited to Congress, and to do so behind closed doors without accountability nor transparency, is destructive to America, its citizens, and to Congress. That is the heart, absolutely the heart, of the EPA versus West Virginia Supreme Court hearing. And so it's really interesting, because what they're doing is they're starting to peel back some of this, where the ATF is defining what's happening. The Driver's License Bureau needs to know what color your car is, right? Why?
Well, that's the thing. Sometimes you'll find a policeman with a brand new 500-pound badge who's telling you what his version of the law is, and it really has no spot in general public of what the...
There is that, and then the prosecutor, so his job is to scoop you up, and then the prosecutor is going to decide whether he prosecutes or he doesn't prosecute. So, but I think
you still got a couple days of vacation time used up in...
and a lawyer. Just saying. At whatever $100 per hour thing is that, you're not making your $10 an hour.
If you're smart enough to get a lawyer, let's put it that way. Because some people think, I don't need none.
If you're not smart enough to get a lawyer, those who represent themselves as an attorney have an idiot as a client, is what I think that the
right, but
saying goes.
I don't. How many times have you been to court and the judge can't tell the guy he needs a lawyer, but he says it in 17 different ways that you, dude, need a lawyer.
Dude. We're just saying, dude.
You need to sign this paper and hold it over for 2 weeks while you get a lawyer.
Because you need a lawyer.
I'm not allowed to tell you that, but that's what
I'm going to tell you that you need a lawyer. I just think that this is an interesting thing, and if you don't follow Thomas Massey, if you don't listen to some of the stuff that he says, I think that he is probably the most underreported yet it's got depth.
He has normal expectations of what people should be doing or being, or instead of you get some people in Congress who want to rule your life, and others who don't want to do nothing but collect a paycheck. And
he, on the other hand, thinks that we all ought to be grown-ups and act like grown-ups, and there is that. But it's
we all just get along.
Well, something like that, or stand down, dude, because you're overreaching where the government ought to be. He stood strong when he was the natural immunity guy in Congress that he actually got fined for not getting a vaccine.
I wonder if they had to pay that, because that Marjorie Taylor Greene was in
that
thousands
too.
and thousands of dollars into
that.
All of that before they
I don't know.
They quit announcing whether
how deep a hole she was in. I don't know, but I know that Thomas Massey was one of them, because he was like, look, they were talking about natural. Why can't I say that? Natural immunity. And then they're like, yeah, that doesn't matter. That doesn't count. That doesn't. And it's like, wait. So it does. And for him, it's not about vax or anti-vax. It's about personal responsibility and personal rights, and the strength of the American freedoms.
Have you heard anything more about the Florida supposed joining the permitless carry?
Their permitless carry? There's actually 5 states that are working on permitless carry. But right now, here's the funny part about Florida, is that that bill is moving through, and I don't know why, but so there's some liberals that are writing about it, and they're losing their minds. Then the Florida Carry folks are writing about it. Then Marion Hammer is writing about it. So everybody has got a stick, and they're poking the other people.
Well,
and
the article I was reading by Marion Hammer was showing that the law passed in 1893 that made it so you couldn't carry open. You had to have a license to carry a firearm in Florida. Mm-hmm. But then it says that under the law, Watson versus Stone, the original act of 1893, it has been generally conceded that the contravention of the Constitution is non-enforceable if contested. So that means Bruin's going to throw it all out anyways. So if they drag their feet long enough, they don't really have to do anything.
It's really, so they're going to pass it because DeSantis needs it passed for his presidential run, because I'm sure that's where that's going. But the Florida Carry folks, Marion Hammer, who was head of the NRA in Florida, who was like the old guard there. So it's really funny watching them all posture and position and poke and growl at one another. And so Marion Hammer actually sent a press release out. So that, and to the AmmoLand News and to thousands of NRA members. So it's